Hi everyone, my name's Lily and I'm the book reviewer behind Utopia State of Mind, and today I want to chat about The Will of the Many. I have thoughts about The Will of the Many, and it has been so hyped, but also so recently hyped, that I just want to let's just talk about it. I think that the reason why it's been so hyped recently is that the sequel, The Strength of the Few, I'm looking at my copy of it over there, but The Strength of the Few, came out relatively recently. I think it came out last month. And so I think there's been a resurgence of chatting about it. I really find, okay, before we talk about my actual thoughts about the book, let's talk about how I've thought about the release of this one. So I didn't know that much about it. Honestly, I'd only read the synopsis. I had kind of been avoiding seeing reviews as well. But it's been really interesting because I guess the covers haven't matched. And so then I think I also saw that they were kind of doing a pre-order promotion, because people want their covers to match, obviously. And so then they were maybe like sending people dust jackets to fit them. And then also I saw some of the spelling typos as well on the sides of the books. So it has been an interesting experience, as someone who is not, had no feelings about it really yet, to see how it has evolved and to kind of take a back seat and watch it. But anyway, that has been kind of my thoughts on it going in. All of that, seeing kind of this amazingly intense hype about this book, and also not really knowing what it was, basically. So I came into this as seeing kind of just another epic fantasy. I put a hold on that at the library and it took forever. And finally, when it started, I was like, I have to read this because I will never get this on the library hold again. I started reading a little bit, and then I ended up going to visit my family for a little bit, and so I decided to take out the physical copy of the book from my other library. And then I realized how long it was. I'm not it's not that I hate long books. I just kind of always wonder at the end of the day. I do think that when people are asking someone to go into a longer book like that, I want it to be worth it. Am I wrong for thinking that? It's not that I hate long books, I just want them to be worth it. And I will say, though, that while I was reading The Will of the Many, while it wasn't a book where I was kind of like every day wanting to go back to it and being, thinking every moment of the day, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. I need to go back and read this one. I'm so excited to read it. That wasn't me. It was still intriguing enough for me to finish it, but it wasn't that kind of obsessive desire to continue reading it. It was kind of just, okay, this is interesting. It's far more Roman-ish inspired fantasy than I really ever thought. I read the synopsis, and I try not to read the synopsis again. I will leave, obviously, links down below to everything. But it basically kind of is this thing where the guy, our main character, is not really going to go to the academy, but basically through a series of events, he ends up getting a sponsor to go to the academy. But to go to the academy, the sponsor is also kind of like, hey, something happened to my brother at this academy. So when you're there, I need you to find out what happens. And then before he's even into the academy, it's kind of a big deal because he's not part of these noble-ish families, these higher, up families. And so he's also approached by other people who want to kind of get a glimpse into the academy. And so it's a lot of things about the training, the academy. If you really love academy training montages, fighting montages about how you become stronger, kind of being broken down by an academy to get even stronger, that to me is a lot of the vibes of The Will of the Many. I think you lose track of a lot of these larger plot infrastructures or sort of overall plot mechanisms that really start at the beginning. I feel like those two things about kind of the mystery and also the potential disruption that this main character has to the overall system is something that kind of takes a bit of a back burner for a lot of the book. You see it pop up and stuff to kind of keep it remain relevant. But I do think that we get into the actual academy for a long time, like 500, if the book is 600 pages, which I think it is, maybe for like 600 pages, a long time. I'm not a huge fan of academy settings. So I guess that to me is kind of why I never had that, oh my gosh, I need to keep reading kind of feeling. It was still interesting. And I think what I thought was interesting about it are the worlds and kind of the political scheming, the political also world structure that we see within the academy. So obviously the people that come to the academy, they bring their prejudices, they bring their backgrounds, they bring their family baggage with them. And so through the people who are in the academy, we can kind of get a bigger picture of interactions, dynamics as well. In general, I enjoyed that one, but I do feel like I wanted more. I do feel like I wanted more, and I do think that there will be more. But in the sequel, but I would say that the majority of my time spent with this book, I would say about 80%, and that's a big chunk, 80%, was kind of like, this was interesting. I would maybe read the sequel, but I'm not super, super into it. It was just interesting. I'm glad I read it. I wouldn't stop reading it, but, not 5 stars, not like my favorite book ever. Um, and so I guess what I want to talk a little bit about before I talk about the last 20%, which if you've read it, you will know why. I'm saving that. Before I talk about that, I want to talk about some things that I liked in terms of the world building. I really enjoyed the premise that we see at the very, very beginning of this idea of sapping people and the way that that has worked within the society. That completely takes a back burner. I loved that at the beginning. I thought that was so intriguing, and that completely takes a back burner for the entire Academy section. So that was a little bit disappointing to me, but that's what I mean in some senses, right? If you're an Academy fan, and also you love kind of I don't know, it just felt very Roman inspired to me. If you love kind of those two things, I think you really will enjoy this. It kind of has a military feel to it. They're training for this kind of academy. It's very cutthroat. They have rankings, they move up. There's sort of companies, there are people that you're sort of surrounded by. And so in general, I appreciated having a slower pace, specifically also within an academy montage. If I don't love academies, okay, but I hate even more an academy montage where it's kind of like, I've been here a week, I'm amazing, right? This definitely makes our main character work for it, and I did appreciate the realism to that. I think in general, what kept me reading was this interrogation of the power of revenge, power, and also this in-group, out-group. We have a bunch of in-group, out-groups, and the fact that the main character doesn't come from the very much in-group, which is the higher up people, but also the way that the higher up people, kind of with the sapping and the fact that they have these powers that they're training, because it's also like fantastical powers that they have as well. This in group out group situation in which one of the quotes that I really liked is that you write the tyranny of the many or you are one of them, and the idea that he's going through all of these illusions about who is he really? What are his real alliances? How does he really feel? Is he intentionally trying to succeed in the system to bring it down? Can he even do that? Or is he starting to realize the allure of power and the allure of the people around him? And so that was really intriguing to me as you see this happen over the course of many, many pages in the Academy, and also the ways that the Academy has these different trials. They have these kind of like large trial, I guess, at the end or towards the end, which the book is really kind of focusing towards and working towards, which I felt, spoiler alert to the last 20%, I did feel like that was wrapped up relatively quickly considering how much of the time is spent being like, I'm trying to go towards this trial. But anyway, that was a little bit of a side because I felt that that was a little bit hasty, especially since so much is thrown at you in the last, I wouldn't even say 20%, like the last 10%, the last 3 chapters, so much is thrown at you that the wrap up of the trial, the wrap up of the book in general, these major, massive cliffhangers that are so clearly going to make you want to read book 2 really frustrated me in some ways because it very much felt like kind of this very obvious now you need to read book two kind of feel. And also it leaves you with this whiplash where I understand that the whole point is that you're supposed to have this whiplash and then be sort of really desperate to read book two. But for me, I had this whiplash and I had to kind of sit down and be kind of think about, wow, was this worth the whiplash? Just because I'm not a huge fan of these end huge cliffhangers that come up in the last couple chapters. I don't mind like a last third, last 25% starting off or an ominous kind of foreboding, foreshadowing, but just as a personal preference, me as a reader, I don't really love these massive cliffhanger drops at the end of book one or book two where it's kind of like, bam, now wait another year for book two. It just, for me as a reader, is not my favorite. I sometimes feel like it's a little bit of an easy way to gain intrigue. And so I just don't like it sometimes, most times, all the times. I just don't like it. And so feeling like that at the end and also considering the amount of things, it just also leaves me with a sense of confusion because even after rereading it a few times, I wouldn't necessarily say I really even understand all the nuances and all the intricacies of what happened at the end. And that also is a little bit frustrating. You know, you read 600 pages and it would be nice to at least understand more of it. I don't know if it's maybe because of me and because it's 600 pages, it's spread out over a lot of days. I was also reading other stuff in between and on top of that. So I don't know if that's me as well, but I don't like feeling so confused and so tricked, I guess, at the end. I'm not tricked, but like so left adrift at the end of the book. I liked the side characters as well, but I also wished they had more time and a little bit more depth. They're very much kind of like avenues for the main character to see a little bit more of the world, a little bit more of the systems, the hierarchies of power, but I just wanted them to stand a little bit better on their own. And so that also was a little bit frustrating. Like, it is a very insular book. It focuses very much on the main character, what the main character is doing. And I just wish it had been a little bit more fully fleshed out, I guess. We have these swirling motivations, violence, grief. Like, there's a bunch of different kind of motivations of everybody around. And this kind of hierarchy system, this very, very rigid hierarchy system. And I just really wanted a little bit more humanizing, I guess, of the other characters around to get a sense not only of how the hierarchy system works, but the effects of the hierarchy system on other people in a more substantial way than what we end up having. And so I am intrigued for the sequel. I didn't even have to wait that long. I have to wait a couple months. Although, as soon as I finished reading the sequel, I did immediately go and try to request a sequel. And I was, I think, 250 on one copy at my library. So I very much thought that I was going to have to wait 5 years basically to read the sequel, except I was talking to a friend and they graciously gave me their arc of the second book. So I won't have to wait that long. But I wanted to make this video, I guess, because I want people who have not read The Strength of the Few to talk about it with me in the comments. Also, if you're going to have a spoiler in the comments, please just write spoiler so that people who haven't read the book are not spoiled. But okay, I want to know from everybody, how do you feel about book series that do this thing where in the last couple of chapters they give you this massive cliffhanger? Because I just want to know if I am in the minority of people who don't really love it or not. So it's not that. So I guess how do I wrap up how I feel about this book? I know that I'm talking about how much I hated certain, hated the ending in some ways and some aspects which I didn't really like. This wasn't a 5-star read for me. For me, I'm thinking it's like a 3-ish, 3.5 maybe. Probably round it down to 3. But just because I think in a lot of ways this book wasn't necessarily going to be my ideal fit. It could have gotten better, or like it could have gotten closer to what my ideal fit could have been. But I really wanted, the things that I mentioned before, right? Side character, the world, I just really wanted there to be more, and I feel like in 600 pages, you could get there. You could get there. And so it was a little frustrating for me in that sense because I felt like you read all of these pages, and I feel like it was so attainable to get there. But maybe not. So let me know down below what you think. And if you've read The Strength of the Few, don't give spoilers, obviously. But if you read The Strength of the Few, let me know if I should bump it up on my TBR. It's on my TBR, and I have the arc of that one. But I still feel so emotionally charged, I guess, after finishing book one and that cliffhanger, and specifically, I guess, how I feel about that, that I think I need a little bit more of a cooling off time period before I read that one. But I am going to read it, and I will let you know, I guess, how I like The Strength of the Few. But yeah, I really wanted to make this video as I talk about hyped books and I talk about what my feelings are, and as I keep you all apprised of these very, very hyped books that I haven't read, that I will read, and then talk to you about in a more rambly review style than I will on my blog, because that will be less rambling. Okay, I will see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your reading day, week, month, and 2025 year, and I'll see you later. Bye.